الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, Instagram fam, friends and followers of as-Saafiy, and welcome to another episode of Revert Reflections. And on Monday we opened a discussion regarding or surrounding relationships in Islam and the importance of relationships and the importance of evaluating our relationships, the various relationships we have, evaluating them from the perspective of their impact on our faith and on our commitment. And if they are helping us with our faith and our commitment to strengthen and nurture those relationships, but if they're harming us, if they're toxic, then we should minimize our connection with those types of people, and we should consider ending those relationships, valuing our faith above and beyond the companionship of people who their companionship is harmful. Today, brothers and sisters, I would like to talk about a specific, or begin talking about one of the most impactful relationships, and that is that of friends. And this relationship, brothers and sisters, is so important that Allah and His Messenger have dedicated significant attention to clarifying its risks and its rewards. So let us begin this discussion with a presentation of some of the Islamic guidelines surrounding friendships. First of all, brothers and sisters, there is a difference between being friendly and being friends. In other words, not everyone with whom we have friendly relations should be considered a friend. One example of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alluding to this reality: not everybody who you're allowed to be friendly with is a friend. Not everyone who you have friendly relationships with should be counted as a friend. One example of Allah alluding to this reality comes to us from Surah Al-Mumtahana, the 60th chapter of the Quran, verses 8 and 9, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين إنما ينهاكم الله عن الذين قاتلوكم في الدين وأخرجوكم من دياركم وظاهروا على إخراجكم أن تولوهم ومن يتولهم فأولئك هم الظالمون. He says, Allah does not forbid you from dealing kindly and fairly, being, in other words, friendly, with those who have neither fought you nor driven you out of your homes. Surely Allah loves those who practice equity. Allah forbids you, however, from befriending those who have fought you because of your faith, driven you from your homes, or supported others in doing so. Whoever takes them as friends, then it is they who are truly wrongdoers. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distinguishes between being friendly and taking these people as friends. Another important guideline, brothers and sisters, is our commitment to love those that Allah loves and despise those that Allah despises. That commitment necessitates that we befriend only believers, that we take only believers as friends. Again, so there's a difference between being friendly with someone, associating with someone, having to deal with someone and dealing with them kindly, and taking them as a friend. This word friend is not something we should just pass out and dole out like candy. It's not something that you assign to everyone that you know, but rather a friend is someone that you bring very, very close, and the people we bring very, very close should only be believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He says, O you who believe, do not take the non-believers instead of the believers as friends. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that comes to us from Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter, verse 144. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in Surah Al-Mumtahana, in the first verse of that 60th chapter, He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا عَدُوِّي وَعَدُوَّكُمْ أَوْلِيَاءَ تُلْقُونَ إِلَيْهِمْ بِالْمَوَدَّةِ وَقَدْ كَفَرُوا بِمَا جَاءَكُمْ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. He says, O you who believe, take not my enemies and your enemies as trusted allies, showing them affection even though they disbelieve in what has come to you of the truth. And Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi have collected the hadith from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تصاحب إلا مؤمنا وَلَا يَأْكُلْ طَعَامَكَ إِلَّا تَقِيٌّ. He said, take none except a believer as a friend, and let only the righteous consume your food. Another important guideline, brothers and sisters, when we talk about the concept of friends and friendships in Islam, is that friends, we have to understand, wield a tremendous amount of influence over us. That there's a statement in Arabic where they say, as-Saahiy sahib, that they say a companion is someone who what? Who pulls you in his direction. What does that mean in a practical sense as it relates to us saying that friends wield a great deal of influence? It means that pretty soon you become a mirror image, a reflection of the people you keep company with. You become like them. You start to adopt even their mannerisms, their manners of speaking, their vernacular. Every person has a vernacular and they have certain things that they say and common expressions that they use. You'll find yourself using those same expressions, talking the way that they talk, walking the way that they walk, doing the things that they do, liking the things they like, hating the things that they hate. They become what? A mirror reflection. You become a mirror reflection of them. It can get to this extent and to this point. As Ibn Mas'ud, he used to say, Al-maru bi khadani. A person is known by the company he keeps. Tell me who your friends are, and I know everything I need to know about you. We have to think about that. And it's for this reason, another guideline is that we need to choose our friends wisely and disassociate ourselves from individuals whose company is toxic and harmful. We have to evaluate, as we said at the outset, we have to evaluate these people who are close to us, given the fact that we're going to start mirroring them. If they have behavior that we find repugnant, and we don't distance ourselves from them, pretty soon we're going to start developing those same repugnant behaviors, those same repulsive behaviors, those same unacceptable behaviors that we find displeasing. If we keep associating with people who demonstrate those qualities and behaviors, pretty soon we'll be demonstrating the same qualities and behaviors. We have to choose our friends wisely and disassociate from those people who their company is toxic and harmful. As the Prophet said in the hadith, Al-mar'u ala dini khalili, falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil. A person will follow the religion of his friend. So choose your friends wisely. Now, brothers and sisters, if we don't follow these guidelines that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger are giving us regarding friendships, if we don't follow these guidelines, we will live to regret it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that clearly in a few places in the Quran. I'll give you two examples. One example comes to us from Surah Al-Zukhruf, which is the 43rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 67. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Al-akhillau yawma idhin ba'duhum li ba'din aduwwun illa al-muttaqin. He says, friends on that day, the day of judgment, will be foes to one another, enemies to one another, except the pious and God-fearing. That if you take people as your friends and they're not pious people, they're not God-fearing people, but you continue to associate with them, on the day of judgment, you and that person are going to be at each other. You're going to regret that you took that person as a friend. Oh man, now look at the trouble you put me in. That's what we're going to be saying on the day of judgment. Allah's not going to forgive me because I associated with you. The things that you made me do and the things you made me say and things you made me believe. Do we want to go on that day of judgment and then realize that we took the wrong people as friends? Give you another example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Furqan, the 25th chapter, verses 27 to 29, He says, وَيَوْمَ يَعُضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا. He says, يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا يَا وَيْلَتَى لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِلْإِنسَانِ خَذُولًا. Allah says, and call to remembrance the day when the wrongdoer will bite at his hands in regret and say, oh, would that I had taken a path with the messenger. Oh, woe is me. Would that I had not taken so-and-so as a friend. He most certainly led me astray after the reminder had reached me. And a shaitan is ever a betrayer and will always desert man in his hour of need. So these are two clear examples, and we could give more where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us that if we choose the wrong friends, if we don't follow these Islamic guidelines as it relates to friends, we're going to live to regret it. And so we should learn a lesson, and learn the lesson the easy way, not the hard way. Don't wait until you come on their judgment and realize, yeah, I shouldn't have been friends with so-and-so and such and such. So what is the main message? What should we take away from what we've heard this morning, brothers and sisters? Let's take away 4 things. Let's make sure that we're talking about the same thing and understanding the same message. And let's leave this discussion knowing or understanding or wrapping our heads around 4 things. Number 1, Islam, while it doesn't tell us specifically, precisely, exactly who we can take as friends. It doesn't tell us, hey, take John and Sam and Sarah and Tariq as friends. It doesn't tell us that. It doesn't give us specific names, but it does give us guidelines. It does give us a broad description, no, forget broad, a specific description of the type of people we should be taking as friends. It does give us that. The people who meet those criteria, let's befriend them. Those who don't, let's not befriend them. Gives us guidelines. These guidelines are not an intrusive denial of freedom, freedom of choice. It's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala smothering us and not giving us the ability to have the free will to pick and choose who we want to be friends with. It's not that. But rather, these guidelines are they're intended to protect our faith. And we have to understand that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in general, He doesn't legislate, He doesn't prescribe, He doesn't to use a common word, He doesn't intrude on our daily lives and what we do in our daily lives except to protect and preserve our faith. And so we have to understand that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us guidelines about who to take as friends, it's because it's for our benefit. There's nothing He can gain by telling us we can't befriend so-and-so, but we can befriend such and such. But what we gain from that is that our faith will be protected and preserved. As the Prophet said in the hadith, al-mar'a dini khalili, a person will follow the faith of the people he befriends. Number 3 from the important messages we should take away is that many Muslims, brothers and sisters, they struggle with commitment. And oftentimes these struggles can be contributed to the company they keep, to the people with whom they associate. The people who they associate have a tremendous impact on their faith. It's like putting a good battery, a brand new battery, next to a battery which has lost its charge. That battery which has lost its charge begins to do what? Begins to suck the voltage and the charge from the charged battery. And this is what happens when we associate with the wrong people. They begin to strip us of our faith. They begin to discourage us from doing the faithful things. They begin to, for example, they'll make fun of us. They'll say, oh, you're just like a monk or something. That's all you do is religious things. You know, you don't need to do all that stuff. They'll start saying things like that. Why do you have to pray 5 times a day? It's a lot of prayer. People, and sometimes it's not just the non-Muslims. Sometimes it's non-committed Muslims, non-practicing Muslims that we're associating with who are discouraging us from being what? More committed to our faith. And so we have to look at how the struggles that we're having with commitment can be contributed to the people that we surround ourselves with. Not surrounding ourselves with people who encourage us, but rather who discourage us to be faithful. Last but not least, from the important messages, and this is probably the most important one that we can take away from what we talked about this morning, is we need to actively evaluate our friends and ask ourselves, are these people who I call friends, are they helping me or hurting me? We have to do that, brothers and sisters. We have to do that for the sake of our faith. We have to realize how impactful these relationships are. One of the most important, impactful relationships is that of friends. We've seen it clearly from Allah's statements and the statements of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these are the things that we need to be looking at how, and this is so important, especially for, as we talked about in the beginning at the outset, it's so important for new Muslims, revert Muslims, converted Muslims, and it's also important for those Muslims who have renewed their commitment. They weren't really practicing and now they're practicing and they're wondering why I'm just what? I'm kind of like stuck in the mud. I'm kind of like spinning my wheels. I'm not progressing. I'm either standing still or regressing. What is happening to me? A lot of that can be contributed to the people what? The people around us. And we have to evaluate these associations, evaluate these friendships, and determine which ones are helping us and which ones are hurting us. And there's so many people who I talk to, and they'll tell me about a crisis they're having in faith. And in the same breath, They'll tell me about this non-Muslim friend, and this non-Muslim friend, and that non-Muslim friend, and that non-Muslim associate. It's like all the people around them are people who are not faithful, people who are not practicing, and they're wondering why their battery is being drained. It's being drained by all these dead batteries, sucking the energy, sucking the faith, sucking all of the spiritual oxygen, and they can't breathe. They can't breathe spiritually. So it's something we have to think about, something we have to work on. We'll talk more about this in the coming days. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبي محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.